Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our session this afternoon. Just been setting up and getting ourselves sorted, so apologies about the 1 minute delay there. But look, appreciate everyone joining us today for the Profit and Growth Workshop being delivered here from Shane. Naturally, this is a sort of in collaboration with Be Free, who I'll be representing here. My name is Jack Webster. I'm sort of leading things from the UK aspect of our business on a worldwide scale. Now, Shane is here, of course, to talk more directly with you all around some of the profits and strategies and sort of approaches that he's taking when it comes to advisory work and some of the different ways in which accountants can deliver their services and really sort of develop client relationships as well. So, Shane is going to be talking throughout the session and delivering his piece. And again, what we'll do is we'll take questions throughout the call. Yeah, please let us know, and we'll sort of dive into those, and we can touch on those throughout the session as well. But keep it very free flowing. And I'd like to all introduce you to Shane and hand over to yourself, Shane.
Thank you very much, Jack. Hello, everybody. Very grateful for you coming on today. Hopefully, you can see my screen behind me. The session is how accountants can help their clients grow and reduce the day-to-day pressure so that they'll happily pay for that kind of service from you. And this is without winging it. It's not, changing the person that you are. You're an accountant. And, if you've tried advisory in the past and felt that you've got nowhere, then actually this is really for you, because I have a belief around accountancy that, it's not, around business advisory that, it's really not for everybody that's an accountant. I think it requires a different set of skills. So I'm sure this is not your first webinar. I'm sure I'm not the first person to be talking about advisory, but as I say, I think this is something different, something that is, really going to help you to deliver much more of a powerful service to your clients in a way that's making more of a difference to the clients that you're working with. It's future-proofing you as an accountant. But as I say, it's not advisory. My feeling around advisory is that it's a little bit like this. This is a quote often attributed to Einstein. He says, everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, then it's going to go through its whole life believing that it's stupid. Now, I'm not suggesting that you are a fish or believe that you are stupid, but I do believe that for many, many years, myself included, quite frankly, we've been saying to accountants, you need to shift into advisory. You've got to be telling business owners how they should run their businesses better. And as I say, quite frankly, it's just not the right approach. Right, I have just realized that I'm just going to make my part of the screen, Jack, a bit bigger because I'm going to be showing for people and it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, please do.
See what's being done there. So, right. Now I need to load up my slides again to accidentally quit them. Let me just pull them back up again just for your benefit. Here we go. So, as I say, the trouble with advisory for a lot of accountants is that, it elicits imposter syndrome for many, because it's like, well, I don't know your business better than mine, or better than you do, should I say. It feels risky. Advisory is effectively giving advice. If I tell someone what I think they should do and that it works out wrong, then who are they going to blame? I don't believe that giving advice is your superpower as an accountant. There are many reasons why I don't feel it's right, not least, but that your clients probably don't see you as somebody who would really help them with their business to that degree either. You are the accountant in their eyes, sadly, maybe the number cruncher. And so for me, as I say, I want to share with you something very different today, something that means that you don't have to try and be something that you're not, something that you're going to feel a lot more comfortable with. As I say, I'm guilty of this in the past, telling accountants that you've got to be an advisor. But now I've seen a very different way, and it's so much more powerful. So believe me, you can really do this yourself. I just want to put this into context a little bit. I know that a lot of people out there who are accountants have made this transition into advisory. So, I'm not going to stand here and say it doesn't work. But in my view, only a very small percentage of accountants have managed to make that transition. Why? I believe it's down to personality, and I'm not trying to stereotype people here either. I think that the common personality of an accountant is that they are very much numbers oriented. Many accountants that I meet will say, I'm not a people person, I'm quite introverted. And so being an advisor, I think that low percentage of those accountants that do this are mega extroverted people. They've got no qualms about sharing their opinions and saying, well, I think you should do this in your business, and I think you should do that. But is that really serving business owners in the best possible way, telling them what they should do in their own business? Do those business owners really take that advice on board? Do they value it? Do they appreciate it? Do they want to pay for it? I believe that as an accountant, you have a natural set of superpowers that what I'm going to share with you today taps into. What are those superpowers? I think the three key ones. One is, your skills with numbers. Obviously, you became an accountant, you're very skilled with numbers. You see what other people don't see in their P&L, for example. You've also got a natural ability to probe deeper. Yes, the numbers in the accounts, the various transactions, but actually that skill for probing deeper is really, really crucial. Digging deeper, finding the cause behind the effect, those types of skills, absolutely paramount. And I often find that accountants have got kind of a systematic approach. You're systematic thinkers. So, you don't like to wing it and you don't wing it. You want to make sure that what you're following is maybe a proven framework, a proven process, something that's structured. And again, what I'm going to share with you today fits exactly with that. I've never met an accountant yet that hasn't told me that what they really, really enjoy doing is helping their clients. They want to serve their clients in the best possible way. Many of them say, do you know what? Yes, I do kind of enjoy doing the numbers, but does it help my clients in the best possible way? Many of them say, I'd love to free up my time more so that, yes, I can get the numbers done for them, but I can have more meaningful conversations with them as well. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. How do you have those types of conversations in a way that fits with your natural profile? By the way, Jack, I can't see the chat box anymore. So if anything comes up, would you mind just stopping and interrupting me? That said, of course, if there's anything that you want to ask or say along the way, please do just interrupt me. Because my slides were messing up a little bit earlier, I've only got them to fill the screen at the moment, which means I can see nothing else on Zoom. So I can't see chat box, Q&A, or even if you're waving. So please just verbally interrupt me. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And please, guys, open QA there. Please do get in touch if we're covering anything and you want to ask some questions. We'll go through that. Do it all on the fly for you. So yeah, absolutely no problem, Shane.
Spot on. Thank you very much. Now, my goal for this session is that I suppose actually, before I talk about my goal, let me just talk about who I think this is for. So I think there are two types of accountants on this session now. One is the type of accountants who are feeling that in order for me to deliver this kind of service, I need to have the grey hair. I've got to have been in the industry for a very long time. I've really got to know my clients' industries better than they do, really, to be able to give the advice. So that's one type of accountant. And in this presentation, I want to share with you that actually, not only do you not need that industry knowledge, not only do you not need the grey hairs and the many, many years of experience, but actually it's better for the client if you don't. Yeah, I'll reveal a bit more about that. And the second type of person might be the one that feels that they are giving a lot of advice away. They are really providing suggestions and recommendations and giving some really good, valuable advice to clients. But actually, they're feeling very undervalued, very unappreciated, because a lot of that value gets given away for free. Now, in the chat box, and I'm just going to minimize my slides so I can see them. In the chat box, I want you to tell me, are you one, feeling that you've got to have a lot more experience and grey hairs and industry knowledge to be able to do this? Or are you two? Are you the person who is already giving a lot of advice away, but you're feeling unappreciated, undervalued? You're not even sure if that advice is being taken seriously and acted upon, and certainly you're not getting financially or even emotionally rewarded for that. Let me just minimize this and just tell me in the chat box which one it is for you. I'm just going to minimize my slides for a moment so I can see the chat box again. So, yeah, don't be shy as well. Let me see in the chat box. And I can see that we've got quite a few of you on here today, which is fantastic. So keep those numbers coming in. Oh, it's just gone up by an extra person as well on here. So keep those numbers coming into the chat box. But so far, I can see we've got a mix. So that's fantastic stuff. Right, let me just pull up my slides again. Here we go. If it's all right with you, I'd like to just share with you a little bit about me, my background. Not too long, because I'm sure you've more important things to be learning in this session, but just a little bit about me. So over the years, I've had the absolute privilege of working with now thousands, in fact, just under 10,000 accountants over the past 27 years of working with accountants, helping them really improve the profitability, the efficiencies within their accountancy business, deliver a much more outstanding level of customer service to their clients, and ultimately help them transition into delivering growth solutions to their clients in a way that's not actually advisory. And I've also had the privilege of being able to invest some time in writing some books that have become best-selling books for accountants. There's a couple here. I've done a few more as well. I've spoken keynote speaking for ACCA, AAT, IFA, AIA, and various other governing bodies, and also TED Talks as well. So, you know, I love being part of this profession. I love sharing my value with them as well. But actually, do you know what? If it's all right with you as well, I'd like to give you a bit of a backstory, because in the words of Freddie Mercury, you know, it's been no bed of roses. It's been no pleasure cruise. And actually, I think what's really important by way of context to what I want to share with you today is something that personally happened to me a few years ago. So I was, when I first started working in this business, I was a shareholder, but actually I was very much in the background. Steve, the founder, the visionary of the business, he was the front person, you know, the knowledgeable business guru. He was, you know, it built a really successful accountancy business in the past. He'd implemented lots of great things and decided that he was going to mentor other accountants. He wrote lots of material for accountants to help them to improve. And I did a lot of the back end stuff. You know, I was happy just being out of sight, out of mind. Steve was the face of the business. And quite frankly, you know, the story in my head was I'm happy in the background. I'm very much introverted. I don't consider myself to be a people person. Steve, the business guru, and I am the guy in the background. That was kind of where I was happy. But actually, one day that changed. Steve had always had a vision of retiring at 50. Now that day came and went. But actually, a few years after that, he finally made the decision, I want to bow out. As you can imagine, that created a lot of concern for me, being the guy in the background. And also, you know, I was thinking, well, who's he going to sell the business to? Is it going to be some different person that I don't get on with or anything? But actually, Steve then said to me, would you like to buy me out? So as much as that was very scary, it was also a great opportunity for me. However, in order to be able to do that, my wife and I had to raise a lot of money. We remortgaged, we begged, we borrowed, and we took out literally over 7 figures and got ourselves into a massive amount of debt in order to be able to invest in this business. Okay, so as you can imagine, that's a scary place to be. But that level of debt also gives you a lot of focus on, okay, I need to make sure that this business is a success. Now, through no fault of Steve's, I felt actually for a while that the business was kind of taking a bit of a turn into a different direction than I really wanted. What inspired me about Steve's original vision was that Steve had set this business up based on the fact that he passionately believed that accountants could do so much more for their clients than purely produce the numbers. Yeah. He passionately believed in this term advisory, which, as I say, I've actually come to hate now as a term, but more on that shortly. But he felt passionately that accountants could and should deliver so much more for their clients. Now, that really appealed to me because I'd had some businesses in the past that had failed miserably. Okay, this is why I was happy to be in the background. I just felt I'm not a business guru. I'm no expert when it comes to running a business. I've failed so many times, but I liked the fact that, you know, Steve was encouraging accountants to really, really help their clients not go through the same challenges that I did and not ultimately lose out on my businesses, which obviously had a massive personal impact as well. So got this new business and I wanted to prove to myself that I could run a more successful business. I also wanted to prove to Steve that I could continue his legacy of a fantastic business that was making a profound difference to clients, as in accountants out there and their clients. But of course, there was this challenge that I knew I'd got that was I don't know anything about the stuff that Steve's been teaching accountants. However, this business, by design, was a systemized business. The reliance on Steve had been reduced. We've got a great team of people and we've got systems within it. So actually it was operating quite fine. So I thought, I've got plenty of time. I can start to read the material, get my head around it in order for me to take the business in the direction that I want to. That was where I was at the time. Now, a bit of background there. What's really crucial, and specifically for this session, is what happened next. Very, very shortly after this all happened, one of our best customers, Roy, his name, an accountant, obviously in accountancy business, had phoned up wanting to have a meeting with me. He wanted me to come down and see him, not to say hello, but actually because he didn't know me, he didn't trust me, he didn't have any idea as to my ability or credibility to help him continue to grow his business in the way that Steve had been. Now, Roy was actually one of our most successful accountants at the time. He'd been in a place where he was run ragged, he was overworked, he was the bottleneck, he was not profitable. You name it, he was in that terrible position. But actually, by implementing the stuff within AVN that Steve had written and helped him with, he transformed that into a really, really flagship style business. He was one of our best case studies. I didn't know him, but I'd certainly heard of him, and I was very much aware of him. So he wanted to see me. Not only did he want to see me, but this phone call had been taken by a member of my team, and she had booked him in for just 2 days' time that I needed to see him. So I was in a state of panic. As I say, I'm thinking, well, I don't know Roy. I've not got to grips with all of the stuff here. I'm not an expert in business. Suddenly, imposter syndrome started to kick in. Suddenly, I'm thinking, if I don't go and see Roy, he might leave. And because Roy is renowned within the network of accountants that we have, I feared that other people might leave as well, in which case that would be the bitter end of the business. So again, terrible position. Really, really worried sick about this. And I thought, well, if I don't see him, he might leave. If I do see him, I might spoil everything and he still might leave. So there's a lot of pressure on me. But I couldn't change the appointment. I knew that I had to face up to this. I knew that I had to do something. So wrongly, by the way, in my head, I'm thinking, right, okay, so I've got 2 days. I've got to try and read every single resource that Steve's ever created. I've got to understand Roy's business by reading everything I can about him. I've got to maybe understand businesses in general. The reality was that couldn't happen in the time frame I got because I got other stuff on my plate as well, other commitments. So then, of course, flashbacks of when I was in my own business, the failure that I felt that I'd been, etc., all came back to me. Honestly, you can't imagine what I was going through. Or maybe you can, I don't know, perhaps you've been there yourself. So in the drive to his office on this particular day, it was about 100 miles away, but I was driving. Throughout this entire journey, my stomach's churning. I was a mess. All sorts going through my head. I felt sick. I wasn't in a good place at all. And I'm just frantically thinking, what on earth am I going to do in this session? But actually, oddly, a thought came into my head. And that thought was actually a memory of something that somebody had said to me years beforehand. It was actually a mentor, somebody that had worked with our business on a strategic level. Go on, I can hear a voice. Did I hear a voice, Jack?
No, nothing from our side. No cues. Sorry.
I thought I heard something. That's fine. I will get to the end of this, but it's a really important point that I feel that I should make here. So anyway, suddenly this flash of inspiration came to me. We'd had this strategic guy come in and sit on the board, if you like, just to give us some strategic direction, some advice. And I can't remember the context of why he said it now, but what he said, for some reason, just came back to me at the time. And what he said was, he says, having the answers is not as important as having the questions. Now, at the time, I think that just kind of fell on deaf ears for me, but some part of my brain had remembered this and brought it back to me in the car on the way down. Now, don't get me wrong, it still didn't fill me with much confidence. I'm still thinking, well, all right, well, what questions should I ask then? However, I arrived at his office and I went in and I introduced myself. And then I was taken through into his conference room, his meeting room, ready to meet him. I was asked if I wanted a drink. So, of course, the person who greeted me was off making that. And as we went into the conference room, just to add to things, around the walls were all these trophies and accolades that he'd won, all these awards for doing super, super well. And even the products that Steve had created for accountants to use with their clients in business advisory were all on his table and his shelves and everything. So I'm thinking, wow, this is so intimidating. So I sat down with him, and actually, surprisingly, Roy wasn't the scary monster I'd kind of got in my head that he would be. He was actually pleasant. He was nice. And we sat down and my drink arrived, but I didn't dare pick it up because I thought my hand is shaking so much. He's going to see that and I'll spill coffee all over myself. So that cup sat firmly on the table. And of course, then it's like, okay, I need to start. We've said our pleasantries. I need to start. And then this flash of inspiration came back to me again. I thought, I really don't know what to say, so I'll just ask questions. And I asked him question after question after question. And I was digging, tell me a little bit about where you're at in your business right now. What's been the challenges? What are the challenges facing you right now? What do you plan to do about them? Lots and lots of questions. And actually what was happening is that he started having these ideas just from me asking him questions. He's going, I've just thought of something. And then I would ask him another question. At one point, he asked me a question, what do you recommend? Now, you can probably imagine that my heart went bang, I've got to give a solution now. But because I didn't have a solution, I just fired it back at him. I said, well, what are the options that come to your mind right now? And he sat back and thought again, and he's having more of these ideas. And all I was doing is asking questions, and he's coming out with all of these great ideas and almost epiphany moments as well. And then at the end of this session, something amazing happened. He said to me, Shane, he says, this has to be the most valuable session I've ever had. And I'm thinking, what? Really? He says that was fantastic. He says, honestly, he says, my faith in AVN is restored. My confidence in your ability to, take things forward is absolutely restored. And quite frankly, he's been a loyal client ever since. So I couldn't have asked for a better outcome from that. So as I'm driving back to my office, I'm kind of reliving this entire session in my head. And I'm thinking, well, what just happened there? And I kind of started to form these conclusions that actually, by asking him these questions, it just made him think a little bit more. And he's the expert in his business, quite frankly. I'm not, even now with all of my experience with hundreds and hundreds of different accountancy businesses, as much as I could say, well, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. It since occurred to me that, do you know what? People buy into their own ideas much better than buying into what somebody else is telling them. And I don't know about you, but I've come across this many a time in the past where somebody said to me something I should do. And I'm thinking, yeah, but my business is different. You don't really get my business. You don't know my clients. I don't think like that. I don't work like that. But when somebody's asking questions and getting you to think about the stuff yourself, actually you start to have, could even be the same idea, but actually you've come up with that idea yourself, haven't you? So, as I said, on my way back to the office then, I'm thinking, right, okay, well, that was really, really powerful. I felt a lot better. Sometime afterwards, another member wanted to see me, and I found out it was off the back of Roy saying, oh, you should have a session with Shane. It was brilliant. I'm thinking, no pressure then. But the same thing happened again. Just asking questions. Now, these weren't just any questions. I suppose subconsciously I'd started to develop a bit of a framework to these questions that I was asking. And then as I became MD, I thought, do you know what? We've got 200 odd members. I need to visit them all. I need to have some one-to-one conversations with them, get to know them using this process. And as I visited these different members, I realized, I suppose subconsciously, that there's actually a pattern to the questions that I'm asking here, which I found really important. And what made me realize is that sometimes I hadn't followed that pattern and it just wasn't the same outcome. So I'd started to create this kind of framework. So two things happened from this. One, I decided that I'm going to train the rest of my team up who are serving our accountants as customers to help them improve on this process because I found it to be so much more powerful. And the second thing was I thought, do you know what? The way that we've been advising accountants to become advisors has been wrong. We should change the way that we work. So that kind of brings me on to where we're at now. That actually, since then, we've been teaching accountants how to deliver this kind of process itself around the questions. I'm going to share a little bit more on that in a moment. And these accountants have ranged from startups to 5-figure, 6-figure, 7-figure firms, single partner, multi-partner. Being on the receiving end of this, they've absolutely grown at an incredible rate, but also by them being taught these skills, their clients, small clients, medium-sized clients, large clients, tradesmen, right through to corporates, they've all benefited and have been so incredibly appreciative, grateful, and of course, paid for these services as well. So I wanted to share that with you just because I thought it sets a little bit of context into what I want to share with you today. Does that make sense? Just give us a yes or no in the chat box if any of the stuff I've talked about so far is something maybe that you can relate to. Okay, so let me share a couple of things with you right now. I'm just going to get a fresh page on my chart here. Right. So what I want to share with you, there are three key things that I want to share with you in this session right now. Okay, let me just pull these up. So I've got, here we go, 3 secrets. One of the first things I want to share with you is, I suppose the first secret is that giving the answers doesn't create breakthroughs. Asking the right questions does. Let me share with you on the board something that became very apparent to me. Okay. If I convey this, let me just move my camera across to the board here. If I convey this like if this vertical arrow means the amount of knowledge, experience, solutions that you have are high here, and actually I'm going to draw another arrow here. If this side represents the benefit to the client, I am going to put this arrow pointing this way in terms of the most, highest here, and highest here. Okay, so in this box, then let me just change my color of pen. I'm going to put some labels on here. We've got consultant, consultant. We've got mentor. And we've got coach. Let me explain the different definitions of these. Most people get all of these mixed up. They don't really see that there's a difference between them. You've got people that say, I'm a business coach, but really they're probably more of a mentor or a consultant. And the words are used in the wrong context many, many times. So what I want to share with you is what they actually mean. So a consultant is someone who is maybe academically trained. They've got a lot of knowledge, and they will go into a business. So let's say a marketing consultant or a HR consultant. They'll go into a business and they'll make certain assessments. They'll diagnose the problem, and then they will provide a set of recommendations, a solution. You could argue a doctor is a consultant. Well, they are considered a consultant, aren't they? You know, a doctor, they'll diagnose the problem, and then they will give you a prescription. Do this, things will get better. That's effectively your set of recommendations, isn't it? Do these things and things will get better. So that's a consultant. A mentor is someone who's kind of been there, done that, got the T-shirt. A mentor is someone who can really relate to the situation because they've been there, and they can share personal experiences and say, well, you know, I had that problem as well. I know how it feels. This is what I did in my business to overcome that. Might be the same industry. And there's nothing wrong with either of these two, by the way. If you've got that kind of knowledge, that's great. They lend themselves quite nicely. Now, notice a consultant has to have the highest amount of knowledge because they've got to give specific recommendations. A mentor, well, they've got to have the knowledge of their own previous experience. They can say what they did. Might not reflect the latest thinking. It might not reflect latest technologies. This could be a retired, CEO from years ago and talking about stuff that they did in their business maybe 10 years beforehand or whatever. Times change, don't they? Well, then we've got coach, and I've got that the knowledge that you need here is low for coach. Why on earth would that be? But the benefit to the client is the highest. Well, a coach is someone who doesn't tell you what you should do. They'll not share personal experiences. Is that benefiting the client? Well, as I mentioned earlier, actually, people buy into their own ideas much more. A coach will ask questions. They will probe very deeply. And actually, as I've discovered myself through many, many hundreds of hours of researching into this, by asking very specific questions, not leading questions, but very open, but kind of through a structured process, they can tap into the inner genius of people. Yeah. Isn't that better? That the client has come up with their own ideas, own ways to overcome the problems that they've got, because they're going to buy into it better, they're going to learn better, they're going to develop as humans and people better and business owners. Because surely the best kind of way to learn is that you develop your own skills and abilities to think better. And that's what coaching does. Now, for me, this business advisor that we keep talking about, that sits somewhere here. Oops, advisor.
Shane, really sorry to interrupt, sir. I just want to make sure the chat is enabled. I'm curious, people might have questions or want to. I just want to double check that's enabled for everyone.
The chat. Well, as far as I'm aware, it is. Yeah, I agree that we've not seen anything come up there. Maybe one of the, well, anybody, please just put anything into the chat box. Let's test that, and if not, then obviously I've screwed that up. In which case, there's probably not too much I could do about that right now. But let's just have a look.
Just wanted to check for everyone.
Yeah, let's just have
appreciate this.
Look. If I pull up my Zoom, I'll just see if there is a way of enabling that. I can't see how to see if it's enabled or not is the answer. I know by default I normally have it enabled, but since nobody's typing in, it's quite possible, isn't it, that it's been disabled somehow. So forgive me, everybody. I really don't know what the best thing to do there is. I can't see a single option on here for enabling it. But since we've got a full house on here, everybody who registered is actually on, which is very rare, I have to say.
Amazing. Yeah, I just wanted to check if people did have some Q&As, because you're covering some really good stuff here. So
thank you.
Wanted to make sure that everyone's got the ability to ask those questions, but if not, of course, we'll do adequate follow-up.
Yeah, we can send out an email afterwards, can't we, to everybody, and just
absolutely
find out. And I will be very happy to answer each and every question personally, not a problem. So apologies if I've messed that up, and it looks like I have.
That's okay. That's okay. No worries. I didn't want to stop you in your flow there, because there's some really good stuff. But again, we'll do the adequate follow-up and we'll go from there.
Hang on, I've just found out how to enable it. Right then, I believe I've just enabled it. So please do type into the chat box now, if you don't mind, just trying that one again for me. Hey, wow. Yes, thank you for that.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, so we're starting to get some responses coming in now. I think I've only enabled that for us to see, which I've yet to figure out how to make it for everyone to see, but at least we can see those coming in. So thank you for that. Now then.
Yeah, I'm registered as a panelist, so I'll get all of those questions, guys, if you want to send anything in, and I'll share them with Shane.
Please fire. I love questions. Definitely bring those in, okay? Cool. And actually, I can also see the chat box now, which is also very useful.
Right. Sorry to stop your flow. I know you're in there.
I'm glad that you did. I'm glad that you did. I'm feeling like I'm doing this blind as well, since I can't see anything. I don't know what happens to my slides, but anyway. Right. So, as I say, I think advisor, if you think about it, it stems from the word advice, doesn't it? To advise someone, which is really to give somebody recommendations, to tell someone what you think they should do. So that sits up here. Yeah, maybe you've got that consulting, maybe you've got knowledge, maybe as a mentor, maybe you've seen what other people have done in their business. So it sits here. I'm not saying it's bad, but is it as beneficial to the client? Sometimes they just need the answer, don't they? Now, of course, as a tax advisor or advising on legislation, the stuff that comes within your remit as an accountant, then absolutely you have to be here, don't you? You know, if someone's asking some, again, tax related questions, company car related questions, whatever it might be, then yes, of course, you need to tell them. That's absolutely within your remit. I'm not suggesting avoid that. But how many times have you given that kind of advice here around tax and they've not been happy with the answer? They've wanted to do something, but you've said, well, actually, there's a tax implication here, or you need to do this, and maybe they're not as happy afterwards. So sadly, it's often bad news there, isn't it? Whereas actually here we can help people come up with really great solutions. So that was my first secret. And I just want to give you a flavor for the experience that somebody else had by using this approach with one of their clients. It's going to be quick, but I just want to play this for you. Hopefully you'll hear it come through. In fact, let me just check my Zoom settings to make sure that all the sound. But I'll tell you what, let me just do a quick check, see if it actually works. Jack, you'll be able to tell me if the sound.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all.
So I thought I need to see somebody before we have this meeting so that I know then what I've done, how I felt, whether I enjoyed it, and how I move on, right? So I got in touch with one of my clients who I know quite well, and I was like, oh, I really want to do this like coaching session with you because he has a few worries as well, so it helped. I said, so would you mind coming in and doing it? And I won't charge you. I said, I just want to come in and see what you think and give me your honest opinion. And he was like, yeah, that's fine, yeah. I said, it's only an hour. And he says, yeah, all right. And he comes in and then I'm going through the whole rigmarole with him. He's a fish and chip man, so he has a fish and chip shop. And he loves it, absolutely loves it, which I knew he would because he's really passionate about what he does. And I said, and have you found this really helpful? And he said, honestly, yeah, I have. I found it helpful. I was so excited after the meeting. I was like, this is brilliant.
Okay, so I didn't want to play too much more than that, but I just want to give you a feel. So what I do is I checked in with this person, a few other people, after one of the most recent workshops that I ran teaching these skills. And as you can tell there, that was Cassie. She was absolutely buzzing. She felt that just taking this different approach with somebody was so powerful. So, you know, I would love for you to feel that way as well, having those kinds of conversations. So that was obviously Cass's experience. I've had brilliant experiences as well. I'm just conscious of the time, so I'm going to move on. I want to share with you my second kind of secret here, which is, you know, great coaching starts with the numbers, and that's your superpower. You might be thinking, do you know what? So I'm talking about all this coaching stuff, but I'm an accountant. And, you know, it might still feel outside of your remit, but actually, in reality, one of the things that we are helping accountants to do is combine coaching skills with their numbers skills to provide a really powerful monthly as well. This is recurring monthly income for you, recurring monthly benefit for your clients to be able to deliver a service that's just phenomenal for them. So let me just share with you a little bit more about that as well. So if you consider a business, I'm just going to draw this big circle that represents a business. That wasn't a bad circle, was it? And if you think about it, a business, it's really made up of lots of elements, isn't it? So if I'm hoping that this works as a bit of a pizza slice. Now, there's probably more than this, but I'm just going to populate a few bits. But every business has its operations, doesn't it? Yeah, it's got to do what it does, provide the service, make the widgets, whatever it is that it does, it's its operations. And let's face it, most people who set up, especially a small business, they've got that trade, that skill. Accountants, for them, for example, themselves, and they're brilliant at being an accountant. Maybe somebody's brilliant at engineering or architecture or whatever it might be, and they think, I know, I'm going to set up my own business. But actually, there's more to it than just the operations, isn't there? There's sales, there's marketing, there is maybe there's the I suppose pricing comes into that. That's a whole strategy in itself. There is just going to put an extra on here. This team. If you're going to start to grow a team, how do you deal with that? There's obviously the finance function. And there are many more elements of running a business as well. Now, what most business owners need help with is not so much this, is it? And obviously, you're already providing guidance maybe around here, but their strengths and their skills are here. They don't know that much about these other areas. Most people price competitively. They think it's the only way to price. It isn't. There are lots of ways to differentiate yourself, and then the sky's the limit with pricing. Marketing, sales. This is where you come in. Now, you might be thinking, but I'm no expert in sales or marketing either. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Most accountants aren't. But actually, one thing that every single one of these has in common is numbers. I don't know how best to write this, but numbers. If you think about sales, most people just look at the top line and think, well, that's the reflection of my sales. But actually, sales in itself can be broken down into lots of aspects. You know, we can measure things like the number of inquiries coming in, the number of those inquiries that have maybe progressed to the next stage of having more of a proposal done or a meeting or things like that. And we can measure a whole kind of flow of percentages from the number of inquiries through to sales. These are the measurables. Each one of these has a set of KPIs that can be put in place. I mean, even operations, of course, there's still the efficiencies, there's all of those factors. And as an accountant, you see, most business owners out there are the opposite kind of personality profile to an accountant. They tend to be big pictures. I'm not trying to stereotype here and pigeonhole, but you know, your skills is with numbers and the detail. Many business owners out there are big pictures and not the numbers oriented type of people. This is where your superpower lies. And so helping the business owners identify what are the KPIs, the key performance indicators of all of these different factors, and then measuring them on a monthly basis, and then challenging them. Okay, this isn't quite to target. What are the things that you could do in the next few days that's going to start to make that a little bit better? Maybe increase it by 1%. What ideas could you come up with? What else could you do? What else could you do? Have you considered X, Y, Z? Yeah. So you can really help them to boost them. So I want to share with you a very brief story here in an example. So many years ago, one of our an accountant who joined us had kind of progressed. He'd worked on his own business, he really got that up to scratch. And then recently, well, I say recently, about just over 3 years ago, this was, because the whole story is 3 years. He had a client who was a scaffolding business owner. Now, he was a one person and kind of an apprentice, if you like, a young junior working with him, not paying him very much. He was only turning over 30 to 40K a year. So yeah, he's pretty much a sole trader, scaffolding business. And he'd been at this for a few years and he was struggling financially. You know, the costs of all the materials and the traveling and all of that lot really took its toll on him. So this accountant, now as it happens, the accountant calls Ian and the client was called Ian as well. But Ian, the scaffolder, had spoken to his accountant and the accountant had implemented some of the questioning that comes from this. And he decided that he would find the money to pay Ian, the accountant, on a monthly basis to work with him to help boost the numbers. All right. So bear in mind, a lot of people think, oh, it needs to be a big client to pay for this. No, he was 30 to 40K. And we see this a lot. If you're able to demonstrate to somebody that you can help them improve, then actually it's not a cost anymore. It's an investment. And as long as they can see that they'll get financial returns on their investment, it doesn't matter how small they are, they'll find the money, they'll make it happen because they get the returns. And that's what happened with Ian the scaffolder. Now, by measuring the numbers that mattered in that business on a monthly basis and being challenged and questioned and probed on how each of those numbers could be just improved, even by 1%, within 3 years, he had become a 700K revenue business, making a net profit of 200K. Yeah. And he says, my success is just 100%. We've got him on stage, we've got him on video saying this. 100% down to working with Ian, the accountant, to help me measure and improve the numbers that really matter. Now, again, not by saying you should do this, because that's not within your remit, but actually by saying this number, how could we make this one better? What are the things that we could do? And just get them to come up with idea after idea after idea. Is this making sense to you? Give us a yes or no in the chat box. I know that you can do that now, so please do let me know in the chat box. So my third secret is, many accountants say to me, do you know what, I don't think my clients are particularly interested in this. I'd have to get new clients. I'd have to try and find those bigger clients. But actually my third secret is, your clients aren't disinterested. They just need the right conversation. So I'm going to share with you my master framework next on how this whole customer journey happens, because actually what you'll discover is that there are a proportion of your clients that desperately want help, okay? But there's a way to identify them, there's a way to approach them, there's a way to kind of initiate conversations with them. And that comes into this framework. By the way, the chat box isn't exactly being heavily populated, so please do answer the questions in the chat box. I want to know that this is not just background noise while you're eating your sandwich at lunchtime. Use that chat box. I appreciate it wasn't working for a while, but it is now. Please use the chat box. I just want to know that this is making sense. It's resonating with you. Okay. So this is what I call my profit improvement client success journey. All right, I've not quite spelled success right, but over that P. So what does that look like? Well, it looks like PIPS. And they stand for something different. So the P stands for perceive. The I stands for initiate. The C stands for convert. And the S stands for serve. So let me just draw what that looks like. What I teach accountants is a number of steps. So if we imagine a kind of a flow chart, all right, and I'm just going to deliberately draw it like this, and then I shall explain what I mean. That really represents ongoing money. So if you imagine that a client may seem a little bit disinterested. So let's just say, let me just write disinterested at the top here. Interested. Two, actually through this journey, they're having monthly paid for sessions. This whole PICS framework takes them through this journey. So to start with, really, we want to find out who's the low-hanging fruit as a starting point. So the low-hanging fruit when it comes to this kind of service are people who are maybe secretly crying out for help. Your clients won't necessarily say, oh, can you help me improve my business? The reality is that most clients, they see their accountant as a number cruncher. They don't necessarily make the connection just what impact working with an accountant could have on them. So they don't necessarily say anything to them. If you say, how are you doing? They'll say, oh yeah, fine, everything's fine. So what we've created, and again, this has taken a lot of time over the years to really perfect, is we've created a very specific checklist. Now, there are 15 points on here that you can go through against every client. And it just asks you certain questions, certain things to look out for. All right. Now, what you'll find is from there, you know, maybe it's the old 80-20. Yeah. So maybe of your, let's say 100% of your clients, let's say 20% of them are massively showing signs that they need help right now. Well, they're the better ones to approach rather than the ones that aren't necessarily showing any of those signs. The next stage from that then is I share a sub-framework called eProfit. Oops, eProfit, yep. Which is, again, a structured set of questions that you can ask. And this is kind of a 5 to 10 minute set of questions that you can go through, not as an interrogation, but just pleasant chit-chatty type questions that you can throw in, maybe at a time of a client meeting, where you can find out, is there a requirement on their part? It kind of draws their awareness to maybe I need help. So some of them will go down and say, yes, I need help. Some of them, no. But it's a pleasant conversation. It's not something that you're going to feel embarrassed about if they don't need help, because you've just gone through a very pleasant conversation with them, etc. The next one then is another framework that I go through. I'm not going to go into any detail on this now, but this is a bit more in depth. You invite them to a free 1 hour. This is about you investing in that client session. Yeah. Where you go through a very specific process with them. And again, off the back of that, they may be asking you if you can help them, or maybe they're just not interested, in which case, fine, they go back up here. Yeah. But the outcome of this, either way, is that they are so grateful to you because it's been a valuable session in its own right. Now, again, there's a very specific structure, a very specific way to run that. And then if they do come on board, this is where you use your skills with numbers and combine that with coaching to be that numbers coach to really help them. All right. So I'm giving you a bit of a flavor there as to how that works. Let me just very quickly, and I appreciate time is getting out of control now, but I just want to share with you a couple of quick videos, again, back onto the TV, where you can see the impact that this has had. So first of all, Joe's talking about a couple of clients that she spoke to.
The guy who I wasn't sure who I'd put on the chat, whether they'd sign up or not, have signed up.
Oh,
so that's great. They're a returning customer that left us 4 years ago. It'd be about £2,000 a month.
Oh, wow. So just out of curiosity on that then, what would you say that the split is on that between obviously dealing with the accounts, the bookkeeping, the transactional stuff, compared to the value of the conversations that you're having and that kind of added value stuff?
Much more than half of that is on compliance and bookkeeping. And then the rest of it is on value-added stuff.
Excellent. So still close to £1,000 a month then on the bad. Yeah, brilliant. Excellent. Good stuff.
To me, because this was a free to her, one-to-one. And she said to me, is there a way that I can pay you to get more of this?
So again, just that last comment there, that's off the back of this free session. The outcome is usually they're asking you if they can pay you for more of these sessions. You're not having to sell. It's an amazing process. Again, it's taken a very long time to develop, but it's an amazing process. And if not, then they've got value from it, which is fantastic. One last 30-second video.
So I've signed up one coaching client who's paying me, a second one who has done a trial with me, which they paid for, and they've come back and said, yep, want some more.
Brilliant.
And there's a third one, which I'm now having sort of more conversation with. I'm charging them £500 a session. And I feel comfortable charging that at this moment in time.
Okay, so given the time constraint now, I think what I'm going to do is I just want one question from you. Do you think, based on what I've shared with you today, you know, those 3 secrets, those frameworks, do you feel that this is something that could work for you in your accountancy business right now? Just give us a yes or no in the chat box. I'd be very intrigued to know.
I've got a couple of questions as well, Shane, after we've maybe got some responses on this side.
Okay.
So
I will stop my slideshow now because I don't need to show anything else. I'll just turn the TV off behind me. So
Rob said possibly.
Possibly. I've got a possibly. Okay. I'd like to know why it's a possibly, Rob, if you don't mind. Just in the chat box. Again, appreciating time, but Jack, you've got a couple of questions there. Please fire away.
Yeah. So just, of course, you know, we're here at Be Free supporting you, Shane, for today's webinar. And we're sort of on the outsourcing side of things here, and I know we're going to discuss that in a bit more detail today. But I appreciate your pie chart, or your pizza chart that you put up previously. You know, the key aspect is numbers plays into all parts of those aspects of the business, right? But of course, also time plays into it. And also, I think you told us there her name was Jo, one of your clients, talking about the compliance piece, right? So it's a lot of value-added services that we're talking about here today, but also the time aspect of some of those compliance pieces. So I appreciate we're taking up everyone's time a little bit further today, but I just wondered if you had any insights into this time aspect, and you know, a lot of what this is centered around is providing those extra services but finding the time to do so. So I just wanted to sort of see, you know, what your thoughts were around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why, you know, I approached you guys as well, because one of the most common, the main trend that I'm seeing now with the accountants across not just the UK but actually many other countries is that they appreciate that compliance is becoming commoditized. You know, tech's getting more and more powerful. Clients don't value the compliance stuff at all. You know, really, they need to do it. It's a necessary evil. So the trend that I've been seeing massively across the UK is that more and more accountants are outsourcing the compliance stuff. Not just the bit that takes them over the natural amount of hours that they'd like to do, but actually all of it. And from their teams as well, and freeing up their team to be able to deliver these kinds of conversations to their clients. Now, unfortunately, many of them have had their fingers burnt because there are a lot of outsourcing companies out there that don't necessarily do the job to the right standard, to the right level of quality. And that's why I said to you guys, you know, I know that you've got a brilliant reputation. I know that you do a fantastic job for clients. And that's why I said, you know, maybe we should run this together, because actually I've so much confidence in what you do that if we're going to have a conversation with people, which we generally do, you know, the workshop that we run. And by the way, what I'd like to do with you guys on here is send you a little bit of information about the workshop that we're running that covers this, that's sponsored by Be Free as well. But what tends to happen in there is that a lot of people say, yeah, but how do I free up the time? And then we talk about the outsourcing. And many people have lots of fears around outsourcing. Oh, what about the quality? What about data protection? What will my clients think? All of those different things we actually have a conversation about in a group, because you tend to find that there are other people in the group that say, well, actually, I'm doing outsourcing and X, Y, Z. And of course, Be3 will be able to answer those questions as well. So again, this is why I wanted to involve you guys, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think just to sort of add to that a little bit, Shane, is and one thing you mentioned there, which was really interesting, is it's not about the sort of the black and white work that you can give away right now, right? I think a lot of where we're sort of working in unison with the profit or strategy that the framework that you put together, what works hand in hand with the outsourcing is it's a lot of the conversations I'm having at the moment, and this might well sort of again relate to you guys in the webinar today, or anyone watching the recording that we're sending out. A lot of accountants seem to be on this sort of precipice where they're busy, their backs against the wall. You spoke about it earlier, this bottleneck that they're finding. But I guess there's sort of this idea that, if they start outsourcing work, they're losing money and they're losing that work, and that's the control gone. I mean, how would you sort of spin that the other way? Right. So that's now freeing up your time to look at these aspects of businesses and look at more of that added value service that you're talking about. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the trend that we're seeing, so, it's not just my opinion here, the trend that we're seeing now is that more and more accountants, because they free up their time, this service, Neil said he was charging £500 and he was happy with that. The reason why he said he was happy with that is because actually it's less than what I recommend in the session. I recommend significantly more than that because of the value that you're giving. Now, most accountants, their charge out rate is for doing compliance work. It might be 2 or 3 figures. Yeah. Per hour or whatever it might be. That's kind of what they base that on. But you can't charge those kinds of hourly rates when you're giving business advisory. If you help somebody who's maybe running $1 million turnover business to ramp up their profits by tens of thousands, which tends to happen here. And we saw that scaffolding company, 300K to 700K in 3 years. And of course, the profitability and things like that. Then, I charge, let's say, £100 an hour for all that. And this has been a 90-minute session. People are just thinking, is that all you're charging? I'm not convinced you'd be able to help me in my business. So that's why, you give away the free one and it's an investment. And what we tend to find is probably 2 out of 3 people come on board with that 1 hour session that you're giving away for free. So then, therefore, more than pays for it. Most of the accountants that have been on this workshop, they're in the first 12 months alone, they're generating an extra £60,000 from the few clients that they've spoken to, existing clients that they didn't think would go for this. So look, you can work that out for yourself. It just makes more sense to outsource the compliance stuff, but use the data that comes back to sit and have meaningful conversations with clients, yes, about those numbers, but also to measure the numbers that really matter to them and help them improve. Clients value it more. It's much more of a worthwhile kind of work that you're doing for clients. I can think of nothing better. Yeah. I don't know if I directly answered that question or not for you, Jack. Sorry about that. But, I'm very passionate about this and I see the difference it makes, not just to the accountants, but actually their clients. And that's helping businesses out there in general, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I can't see any more questions coming in on the chat or the QA at the moment. So again, apologies, guys, that was down at the start, but we got that working eventually. But we will follow up adequately following this session and reach out with any other questions. But Shane, I don't know if you had any other pieces you wanted to cover at this moment.
Not at the moment. I think given that we've gone over the time, what I'd like to do, if it's all right with everybody, is obviously you've registered on here. I'd like to send you maybe a follow email with just a few details about the workshop that we're running together, Be3 and AVN, to help you to really hone in on the skills of doing this. Okay. So I'll send you some information through on that one. But my recommendation is, make the time to come along. I think you'll really, well, I know that you'll really value it. The testimonials that we get from these are brilliant. So my recommendation would be to come along. So we'll send you some details out, okay? Yeah, we'll take it.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Shane. Really appreciate your time today. Again, from us here at B3, we're going to be doing the exact same. We're really excited about the event we're running in February. So look out for that. And some of the collateral that we'll send around that, and some sort of early bird offerings as well, which is great for you guys that have joined this session. But I can see, Shane, Rob, I can see you've messaged back. Look out for the email there. And again, everyone else, we'll send that across. But I really appreciate your time. Apologies for running a little bit over, but lots to cover. So hopefully, when we've got some more time in February, we'll cover a bit more. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a good day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.